Um, all right. Well, I want to talk about now the return flight when you landed at JFK.
Okay.
Can you explain to me what happened, exactly when you got off your flight, what you were met
Yeah.
with?
One thing I need to clear to another rumor that was going around was they making me out to be a very evil person trying to sneak back into the state. Um, the whole time, okay, so before I left, I told people I was going to West Africa. The whole time I was in West Africa, I reported to my friends and also to the news media that I'm in West Africa. And also I communicated with the mayor of Rutland that I was in West Africa. When I was ready to return, I told people I'm coming back, and they knew I was coming back, including the mayor of Rutland. There was no secret about it. They made it like I was trying to, that I was intercepted and trying to sneak back in, and everybody had been informed, and so when I tried to come back to the States, the first plane that I tried to take, I was denied. I was on a no-fly list. I'm saying, what's going on? Why am I on a no-fly list?
They put you on a no-fly list?
Yes, and it was the U.S. government. The government did it. The U.S.
Wow.
government put me on a no-fly list.
Well, that would have had to have been at the aid of the Vermont government, because how would the U.S. government know to put you on that list?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, I lost that seat. I did not get my money back. I was told that I would have to fend for myself. So I contacted the U.S. Embassy. I was told I'd have to fend for myself. They would help me try to figure out what was going on and get me out of West Africa. They did a thorough search. They checked with everybody. They told me back in the States and in the countries, Guinea and Sierra Leone. They checked also with the FBI. I came up clean as a whistle. No criminal problems, no medical problems, nothing. No reason that I should not be able to fly out of here. And that was what I was told. And I'm saying, well, then why could I not get on the flight? We don't know. But I had to come up with the money and hotel money, the flight money for the airplane, for another airplane, a different airplane, and the U.S. Embassy checked on Brussels Airlines and one or two other airlines for me, and touched bases with them, saying, if this guy were to wanted to fly on your airplane, would it be a problem? Brussels Airlines said, no, there would not be a problem. So the U.S. Embassy and I booked another flight about 3 days later with Brussels Airlines. I went to the airport and again had a problem. I was denied. And actually what happened was they gave me a boarding pass, and 1 hour before the plane was going to take off, they came and they took it from me and said I could not fly. I was banned from flying. I was on a no-fly list. I immediately contacted the U.S. Embassy. The U.S. Embassy said that they would look into it, see what they could do as quickly as possible so that I would not miss that flight. Less than half an hour later, the embassy called and said I was good to go, and a person from Brussels Airlines came and got me and went back to the ticket counter, and then I had to go through the whole check-in booking process all over again, including a health screening. But I did make it as the plane was boarding.
So when you arrived at I'm sorry to interrupt you. So when you arrived at JFK,
so when I got to JFK,
yep.
There were two security officers waiting for me on the jetway before you even get to the terminal, to the gate. Before you even get to the gate into the terminal, two officers met me on the jetway, and asked me politely to accompany them. And so I did. I knew what was going on, and they accompanied me back to the health office, manned by the CDC, and there, two doctors talked to me, screened me, and okayed me to be released and from their office, from their health office, into the custody of two Vermont officials who had come down from Vermont to.
Okay, let me stop you right there again, if I can. Sorry to keep interrupting you.
Yeah, sure.
Now, these two doctors that did the screening on you, were they wearing protective gear?
Only one was wearing a shield, a plastic face shield, and maybe an apron, something like that, but not the full-blown thing. And the other doctor, nothing, just regular old, like if you went into a doctor's office and you met your family physician for an appointment. And
also, it would be safe to say that neither of the security people that met you were wearing safety equipment either?
They were not wearing anything other than their uniform.
So in your medical opinion, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. In your medical opinion, hypothetically speaking, if you would have been infected with Ebola and able to transmit it, then they probably all would have got Ebola at that point, correct?
True. If I had Ebola, there was the potential that then they could have gotten it. So
the plan, even at the airport, wasn't.
With the people who took me back to Vermont, same deal goes with them too. If I had it, then they potentially could have gotten it.
And that's pretty shocking statement to say because, I actually lived in New York City at one point in my life, and I know what JFK Airport is. I know what kind of a hub it is. And so if there actually was a real case, then that would have been ground zero for a pandemic at that point, don't you think, in your own?
Exactly. Well, even on the airplane, if there had been a real case of Ebola on the flight on either of the two flights that I was on, many people could have gotten sick, could have also contracted Ebola.
And the way the airports worked, and it just gets dispersed throughout the world very quickly.
Well, yes. Well, you saw what happened to that nurse that flew from Texas to Illinois, Chicago.
All right, now let's fast forward to the doctors released you, and exactly what authorities from Vermont did you meet next?
All right, they told me that there were two people there to pick me up and take me back to Vermont, and I said, oh, I was not totally surprised, but a little surprised that New York didn't hold me, and that there are two people that actually came, even though Vermont's not that far from New York City, that the state actually sent two people to pick me up. That was the sheriff, Stephen Bernard, and one of the public health nurses for Rutland County, and that's Joanne Calvi, Jalvi.
Okay.
They both were there, and just dressed normally.
And they didn't have protective gear on either, I'm assuming?
No protective gloves, nothing. Just totally like a person on the street.
Okay, so what did they, what conversation took place after you met with them?
Oh, they said they were there to pick me up and take me back. The two security officers from JFK, New York, turned me over, walked me up to them. They turned me over. Then the other two said, we have a car waiting for you. We're going to take you back to Vermont, to Rutland. So we got in the car. So we went out. And the car was parked curbside, not far from the exit door that we went out of, and we got in the car and started our journey.
So at that point, was it your understanding that you were being detained, or that this was a voluntary action on your part?
Voluntarily going with them, but I was being, but I knew I was being detained.
Okay.
But we didn't talk about quarantine. That word, we never. What was going to happen? In other words, when we first met, there was no talk about what the plan was, what they were going to do with me, where I was going exactly, what was going to happen to me. There was all the way to until we arrived at the roadway end. There was no talk. Even when we got pulled in the parking lot, there was no talk about it.
Well,
Until I got out of the car, and then there was a door, one of the rooms at the motel that had a quarantine sign on it. Said, "This is where you're going to be staying."
now the media has reported that you were met at the airport and you signed an what's that paperwork?
No.
Voluntary
No.
quarantine, or
Paperwork was never. Like I said, nothing was ever talked about. Nothing mentioned at all. The only thing we talked about all the way back was they wanted to know, what was Africa like? What was Ebola like? What was the situation like? What did I see? Not just about Ebola, but about how, the people, the place, just like a curious, any individual who was curious, tell me about Africa. What was the weather like? What were the people like? What did you see? What would you see with Ebola?
so
Nothing was talked. I talked the whole way back and told them everything, and they were amazed and they asked questions.
at what
Paperwork was not presented until I got in the door that said quarantine at the motel, and then I was presented with the form. It said, "You have here's a form that you have to sign, saying that that you agree to be to agree to that I agree to quarantine, and it's voluntary." I looked at the form, and as I said on on my Facebook and to us as the other news media people is there was no choice. It was I was forced, not physically, but I was forced to voluntarily agree.
Yeah, because if you didn't agree, isn't it correct that
then they would just invoke emergency measures, and I would be quarantined anyway and or imprisoned. That's what the form said. I read it. I looked at it.
So would it be fair to say that you signed the voluntary form under the threat and duress of possible imprisonment and or other actions?
Correct.
Now
I wasn't given a choice.
that doesn't sound very voluntary from my point of view. I don't know about your point of view.
No, it wasn't. But I was being cooperative, and I didn't want to. I did not want to cause a problem.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be thrown in jail. I did not want to be thrown in jail.
That's understandable. Obviously you don't. But to sign somebody with the threat of putting them in jail is
sign this or else.
That's
sign it or else.
That's not really the way that the law works in our country.
That's the way I was treated.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, I've been treated very bad by the news media and everybody. I've been vilified and everything else.
Well, I'm glad.
It's not fair. It's not right.
I'm glad that we're going to be able to at least get your story out, the truth. What happened from your point of view, unedited and unscripted. For everybody to be able to hear. But I had a few other questions. That did they ever give you the right to speak with an attorney, or
no,
suggest that
they never offered, mentioned, they never even mentioned the word attorney or lawyer or legal anything. Never.
But they did.
And or that I had, can we, give me a public defender or anything, just nothing, nothing at all.
Now, have you had a chance to speak with one yet, even to this day?
No.
Okay.
I don't, I mean, as an aside, I don't have money to afford a lawyer. I mean, it cost me. I ended up losing at least $2,000. It took me $2,000 more dollars to get out of there, to get out of West Africa, because I was denied the first flight back on the no-fly list. And it also happened to me again. I almost lost the second flight. And if I lost the second flight, I would still be there on the street. I would not be. I told some friends. I said, if I had not made that second flight, you would find me on the street, living on the streets of West Africa and Guinea. I said, I would not be going back to the hotel. I wouldn't be going anywhere. I said, all my, I had exhausted the money that I was going to be spending. I wasn't going to be throwing any more money away.
Now,
especially after the embassy had guaranteed, almost guaranteed that, I'd be able to get out of there on that second flight.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your quarantine situation, but I don't want you to obviously say where you're at.
Right, I can't.
We don't want you to. But are you, obviously you're feeling good. You sound like you're good and healthy at this point.
Yeah, I have had no fever, no signs or symptoms. I'm completely fine and well, as we all, and in fact, that's what the sheriff who picked me up and the public health nurse said. They don't. This is they expected me, and they have always expected that I would not exhibit or show that I have Ebola.
Now, have they've stated, I don't know if this is true, that 2 nurses or medical professionals come visit you twice a day. Is that correct?
I am seen twice a day. I have been ever since the beginning, twice a day by two nurses. 2 nurses twice a day.
And do they wear any kind of...
And they make multiple contacts with me. My temperature is taken at least 4 times a day. They call me before they come and ask me to take my temperature, so that if I should be sick, have a fever, they would not come. They would institute, I suppose, some, call the ambulance and institute some higher protocol. People would come in suits and everything and bag me up and take me off to the hospital. So they always call first for me to take my temperature, and then they come again, 2 nurses, and we take my temperature again, and then they observe the temperature so that I can't be lying to them. So the first time on the phone, I tell them, what my temperature is, and they come. They trust that I'm telling them the right thing. And then they come and take my temperature again, and they ask questions, and they verify that I look healthy, and that my temperature is, and they look at the recording of the temperature on the device.
Now, do they wear any protective equipment?
They do not wear anything, no.
Now, I'm assuming...
No gloves.
I'm assuming that you must be getting food somehow and other things to survive while you're there.
They've been providing, from the very beginning, they've been providing me, what's necessary, provisions. They've been making certain that I have all the provisions necessary, that I am taken care of. So no inhumane treatment, other than being quarantined. No no contact. Can't go anywhere. Can't,
That leads me to my other question now. The people that bring you your food and stuff, are they wearing any protective equipment?
There are no people who bring me my food. The nurses bring the food. The nurses, people. Here's what happens is and I'll give credit. It's the Red Cross that gets the food. Somebody shops and picks up some things for me, and they've also asked me what things I do like. So they pick up they think I need they pick up things that they asked me that I would eat, and so then they give it to the nurses. Pick it up from them. They meet somewhere somehow, and then the nurses, when they come to see me, the nurses bring it and drop it off.
Well, excellent. Sounds like they got a good system there.
Yeah, it is. It's excellent. It works really well, I think.
Now,
It's for people, coming and going left and right, and all that, and any potential. If I have, if I were sick, let's say a week ago, or got sick a week ago, then that's less people that you have to worry about. So it is a good system.
okay. Now, as far as you're concerned, you're being treated well at where they're keeping you. That's not an issue, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Where they're keeping me is not an issue. I'm being kept safe and well.